Welcome to lecture 6 of an introduction to computer science with Python. And today we'll be covering more things about type conversion, type error, expanding input, and print. If you don't know what type conversion is, or if you haven't heard of it, see lecture 5, because I will be glossing over the introduction of them since I already did that in the last lecture. Just a review of type conversion. It involves using an expression to create another expression of a new type. For example, if you have an int that you want to change to a string, then you would use type conversion. And here I'm just saying, if you want to concatenate when printing, like for example, if you want to say num equals 5, print num is, and this will take num and modify and return or change or like give a string that has 5 in it. So num is 5. But if I just did num normally like this, you know that if you've ever tried this by yourself, it tells you that you cannot concatenate string to string because it tries to add string, can only concatenate string to string. So it cannot do string to int because num right now is an int. But here's an example of type conversion. I may have used this last time, I don't know. This will be an addition calculator where it takes in two numbers from the person and gives me the math sum of that. So what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a variable called add1, and I'm saying give the int version of the input, which is by default a string, and then the prompt will be enter first added. And if you don't know what a prompt is, I'll just tell you. A prompt is something that tells the user or person what to do, what to type in, what button to press, whatever, but it's a prompt. And then add 2. You should know that variables cannot have spaces, and if you didn't know that, then please go back and review, because that's kind of a big one. You cannot have this, that's kind of bad. And then I can say print the answer is, you may notice that I'm using the string thing here again, and that's because I want to add them together, then get the string form of that. So like if the number 12, the string form of 12 is 12 in quotes, and this is what I want, because this you can add to this string here. Once I add them together, I do this, and that will go with the rest of the print statement, and it's printed. So enter first add in, let's just say 10, and just shoot, I forgot a second. So enter first add in, let's say 5, enter second add in, let's say 20, and the answer is 25, which is true. See? So yeah, let's review some things. What's going on? So one change that I made from like last lecture looks like this, and in this case I did num1 equals input blah blah blah, and this is right now a string. Then I say num1 is int num1, and int num1 will give me an expression that is the int version of what num1 already is. Num2 will give me int num2, and then blah blah blah. What I did differently in main, in like this current one, is that instead of having the input and then making it an int, I took the int form of whatever the input is. So to illustrate this, before this could be like my sample input. Oh, oops. This could be my sample input, and this input would go into the variable that I'm calling add1. Then in the second step, which is represented by this line, in the second step, add1 is 60. Well, in the second step, I say like here, int num1 would be like getting the string version of 60, making it an int, and then taking that value and giving it to num1. So here, add1 is 60. It goes, it's a bit hidden here, but it becomes the number 60, and then that number is put into add1 as the updated new variable. That's the change I made last lecture in lecture 5. But in this lecture, I just went straight from getting the number to getting the input. This is the input, to getting the int form of that, or the number version of that number form, and then making that go into the variable add1. They do the same thing, but one of them is better just because it's shorter, and we computer science people like short things. Specific type conversions, I think I may have gone over this last time. String of whatever expression is inside here, replace it with an expression that you want to turn into a string. For example, string 500 will give me 500 like this. Int expr or expression, replace expr with an expression to turn into an int. For example, int 602 will give me 602 as a number, whereas 602 just as a string by itself gives me a string. Others will come along later because there are a lot of types, and you can even create your own types, but that is a very complex thing that I'm not going to go into. So there are many types, create your own types. That will be in like lecture 40, 30, I don't know, but that'll be quite a ways away. But yeah, other types will come along soon, but similar to the word print, you can't use string or int as variables. So I can't say like int equals 2. It's not going to work because int is colored, and because it already does something. And how do you know if something does something? If something already does something, well, you can just go and search up the word that you want to make as a variable. Let's say int, and then I can just say Python. So int Python, let's see. It tells me immediately, hey, this is a function, or this is something that's already doing something, and you can't use it. And let's say I wanted to make something, a variable called string, or I mean str, that already does something too. Or, yeah, I'm not going to go too far into it, but you get the idea. So type error, you may have seen this before, and I think I just showed you where add 1 plus add 2, I want this to go with this and be printed together, but it's not going to work because it tells me that I cannot concatenate or add together int to string. And this makes sense because how would you add the to the number 10? You can't. It's just, you could, but it would be not very smart. So yes. So if the computer is ever confused about what to do, it stops the program and lets you fix it, because computers are only smart if the person who codes the computer is smart. So you, as the coder, this is part of your job to make sure that errors like these don't come up. You won't have to know what type error is as a name, but just know that you can only add things to certain things a certain way. Type error also means that there was something wrong with the type conversion. For example, if I wanted to say int 602, that works. But if I said int j, that does not work because A gives you a fancy reason here that I'm not going to go into. But also it's because, let's just say the example is ABC as a string. It's because the letter A and all of the letters A, B, and C, they don't have an int form or an int version of themselves. But they sort of do in the form of ASCII. You may have heard of it before, but that's not int. Because ASCII is just a way of showing letters, but to get them back is not going to become an int. So if that just didn't make sense at all, please don't worry about it, because just understand that letters and symbols, like let's say int %, don't have int forms. We've also seen type error if you tried adding a string and an int together. There are a lot more of these. But since we only know two types, and that is string and int, it does not super matter yet. But be careful when you're adding things together. Ask if it makes sense to you, and if it doesn't make sense for you, it probably won't make sense to the computer. A benchmark in your CS learning or computer science. Now that you know about expressions, those are very important. I covered them a lot. String concatenation, where you add two strings. Type conversion, input, print. Simplifying expressions, like how 1 plus 2 will give me 3, or 1 plus 3 gives me 4. You now understand all of the parts of my addition calculator, which is cool. This looks very simple, but you've actually got a lot going on here. First of all, you've got variable assignment, where you put something into a variable box or variable name. You know about the int type conversion, input to get things from people, which is super important. Strings, and then you know how to concatenate strings. It's great. With this, you can now do many things. They can be simple games or tools, but please explore further beyond that. So like, if I wanted, let's see. Actually, no, never mind. That's a bit complicated. But hopefully by lecture 15, you can make a program that makes the user guess a number between, let's say, 1 and 100, and tell them if the correct answer is too high or low. What I mean by this is that, let's say I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100, and you have to guess it. So then, let's say I'm thinking the number 10, and the user and the other person guesses 50, then I would say, wrong, you're too high, because 50 is greater than the secret number. And to keep doing this until the person gets it right. That would be sort of a useless program, but it would show how much you know. And that's going to be a lot of what you are going to be programming. It's just doing slightly useless things, but doing them to show what you know. For example, there's this thing called USCO, where they like cows a lot, and they will give you sometimes stupid problems like these. You can read this if you want. I'm not going to read it for you because that's not what I'm here to do. But this is very high level, and you probably don't know it yet, and I would be surprised if you do. But doing things with cows and asking if you know your ABCs, that's not going to help the world. That's not very helpful. But it does show that you know how to do it. Just because it's not useful doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And that's going to be a lot of what your beginning CS career, I guess, looks like. Is just doing things to show that you know, and to show you what you know. I think this. Oh, that's not it. Expanding on input. If you so here, notice how it says enter first add-in 5 and then enter second add-in 1. There's no space between them. That looks kind of bad. So one thing we can do is do this. So we can say 5 and 1. And now there's a space between. Or you can do \n. If you don't know what that is, then that's not my problem because I think I've covered it. So here it asks for the thing like that. And enter second add-in 6. And the answer is 11. So yeah, you can have an \n there. You can also have multiple spaces. But there is a better way to do this, but I'm not going to show that either. Actually, I'll show it because this is my class. Haha. It's called \t, and \t stands for tab. And with this, it'll automatically give you a certain number of spaces. For me, I think it's 1, 2, 3 spaces, including this. So 3 spaces, 5, 6, 11. But notice \t is a bit better than just doing 3 spaces, because you might notice that this only gave me 1 space, this gave me 2 spaces. And that's because that's what tab does in Google Docs as well. It's a bit not related, but whatever. Yeah. So expanding on print, this is going to be the end equals part. So I don't know why I closed that tab. So yeah, print. You can say. Actually, I had notes here. I don't feel like I have the time to do all that. So first, make all of it a comment. So this says input. What's your name? So it'll give me my name. Is your name and equals space print Ben. And oh wait, oops. I see a problem here. The thing is that when you copy paste from other places, especially higher tech text editors, it's that beginning quotes and ending quotes are different, and the computer doesn't recognize them, so you have to sort of do this on your own. No wonder it looked a bit funny, but now it should be fine. So what's your name? My name is Ben. And is your name Ben? Yes. What this is your name and equals space. So this is like the first print statement. This is the second print statement where it just prints Ben, and then it prints a question mark, and at the end it puts a space. So it puts a question mark here like this. So 1, 2, 3, and then it asks for your input. And this looks very useless, but it will not be useless once we get to larger problems. So normally, when you print something, it prints not only hello world. It looks like it's just printing hello world, but actually it's printing hello world and this \n. There's a \n here. So if I were to say comma n equals an empty quote, it would actually print hello world, but then you get stuff here. And that's not on a new line because hello world didn't finish with a new line. So usually hello world is like this. Hello world and equals \n would give me the same thing as if it was not there. So this and this are the same. Because the \n is what and equals defaults to, Default just means what it normally is if you don't say anything. So yeah, \n is what is normally there. It's just that you don't often see it. Sometimes if you do want to change this, then you kind of have to. So Python does give you the option to change the ending string if you want. And now you might be asking, but why would you do this instead of just doing this? Well, if I wanted to print 1 plus 2, I can't exactly put a space here because that space will do nothing. I have to say end equals space. So that might be why you want to end in a certain way. But if you want end equals, this is an empty string, so it'll put nothing at the end. Then if you don't put anything here, and if you just put it like here and just deleted this essentially, and you put the end equals right here between the n and this, then it will just print a new line. So end equals is sort of a niche, not super useful feature, but depending on what you do or how you do things, it might be useful. That's it, I think. Yes, that is it. That is it, and thanks for your attention. I'll see you next lecture.